Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Monday Follies, part of the Craig Fahle Show on Deadline Detroit. Glad to have you with me this week. And man, what a week it was. We have plenty of stuff to make fun of this time around. And I have two guests who are here to help me do that. My friend Dave Frisetto is back after a lengthy absence. He, of course, is a soon-to-be restaurateur, the Lexington, which is going to open in the Woodbridge neighborhood very soon. A lot of stuff coming together for you, and you should be finding out rather so you're a finalist for Motor City Match Award, which would be a big deal.
Fingers crossed.
So fingers are crossed on that one, because I'd love to see this place get open. But thank you very much for being here today.
Thank
Appreciate
you very
it.
much.
My friend Vaughn Derderian is back. He knows a little bit about the restaurant/bar business as the former owner of the Anchor Bar in downtown Detroit, the legendary Anchor Bar. But now, of course, is the newly elected chair of the Oakland County Democrats.
True.
Thank you
True
for being here. Appreciate it very much. And gentlemen, it was quite the week. And let's start where we seem to start every single week. The president makes a lot of news for a lot of different reasons. He didn't make this news so much as respond to this news. We, of course, got the Barr memo about the Mueller report last week, in which the president has been running a victory lap, suggesting that he has been completely vindicated, that all is well. But not so shocking, you have a bunch of people who are actually involved in the investigation that have been grumbling to reporters, which is very unusual, that they don't think that this portrayal from Mr. Barr is exactly 100% accurate.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering what's in there that's got them so peeved.
Well, here's something I think that is really frustrating for those people. Like, again, these are people that worked on this report for, 18 months?
Yes.
So one thing that they did is they prepared summary reports at the beginning of each section that they thought were going to be released to the public. So they worked on pulling together, essentially, what they thought was going to be released, something that was fit for public consumption.
Here's what we found.
Right. And that those reports were not released is what's been most frustrating, because, Barr comes in and does his summary of the entire report, but they had done the work to do summary reports of each section, and that those reports they intended those to be released to Congress and to the public. And that has not been released is what's really frustrating them.
They were written in a way so that they could be released, right?
Right.
Wouldn't need to be redacted.
Well, that's what they say. I mean, we haven't officially heard. I mean, a lot of these are unnamed sources at this point in time, and of course, the Post has been all over it. NBC News, the New York Times is the one that actually broke the story originally, and there's a little bit more trickling out each day. And I'm wondering if some of these folks are holding on to see what Barr actually releases in the, redacted form. I have a feeling that if indeed it doesn't look the way that they think it should, somebody's going to spill the beans about what they actually found in that report. It's just a matter of time.
Yeah, I think, and again, it's the fact that to jump a little bit, ultimately, the report is supposed to go to Congress, and so if Congress right now is trying to get the full report released to it,
Unredacted.
right. And so I think that's the real friction point, that if Congress feels like they're not getting, that they want the report so they can make a judgment on this, and they're not getting it, at some point somebody's going to leak it to them, and that's going to be a big issue.
I'm waiting to see what's in there.
Well, that's what I've been saying all along. I'm like, it sounds great that you've told us everything's fine, but I kind of like to see.
Everything's fine. Nothing to see.
Nothing to see here. Also, it's going to be 4 weeks until I give
Kevin
you
Bacon at the end of Animal House.
Yeah.
Remain calm. All is well. The stampede comes out.
Yeah. I mean, okay, so they aren't going to press any more charges. They're not going to indict anybody else based on what they have. But there's still a lot of stuff we haven't been able to read.
I think there's stuff that we need to know about these folks. And if indeed the narrative that seems to be emerging in the last few days that, hey, even if they didn't conspire with Russia, they sure got the wool pulled over their eyes by them. That in itself, I think, is something that we need to know.
Yeah, and again, the analogy that I've always used going back, way, way, way back to the beginning of this, is that it's like a black hole. That we can't actually see black holes. We detect them by sort of the way things move around them. And even going all the way back to the beginning, to the election and the post-election stuff, when you have all of these government officials, Mike Flynn and General Flynn and Trump Jr. and Michael Cohen, and they were all lying about these things that were very easily disprovable, Jeff Sessions. Well, if there's nothing if they're not really trying to cover up or anything, then why are they so consistently lying about small things? It just, something about that has always felt weird. That
they misremember in unison almost, right?
That's right.
If you're going to misremember things, you'd think somebody might remember the context and forget, where they left their car keys. But no, they all seem to misremember when they met with a Russian.
Okay, but let's talk about how serious this potentially is. I mean, it seems as if the president has spent the week trying to get anybody's mind off of that. Hey, I won. Let's move on to these other things. But he picked the wrong stuff. He picked healthcare.
Wow.
And then he, of course, picks the potential border closure with Mexico. And I love this. I love the fact, first of all, let's go to the border closure, because he says he's going to close the border, and I'm going to close it potentially as early as tomorrow. Well, the auto industry, of course, freaks out, saying, hold on a second.
Yeah.
And then he goes, all right, Mexico, you got 1 year to get your act together. I'm not going to close the border. We are like a yo-yo on a string with this guy. He just constantly jerking people around. And
But if you
at some point, when are we going to just sit there and go, and everybody just stops listening?
November of 2020.
Is that
right?
when? Do we have to wait that long?
It looks like we do.
Dare to dream.
Yeah, but
I don't think that there's going to be any shortcuts here.
I don't think so either. But if you're looking at a way to take the attention away from the Mueller report, Mueller report synopsis comes out. Nothing to see here. Everything's cool. Right away, he comes out with a couple of things that are embarrassing and ridiculous, like claiming that his father was born in Germany and he was born in the United States. Things that are easily disprovable. People's minds go off in different directions, and the last thing they remember about the Mueller report was, yeah, it was all good. Nothing to see there.
I don't think they're buying it. I've looked at some poll numbers. People think that there's something kind of weird going on there.
I sure hope.
But I mean, look, what happened to the emergency? I thought there was an emergency. How is he giving Mexico another year to fix the stuff down
Which
there?
emergency? I can't keep track.
This is the border
The border
emergency.
wall.
Oh, okay.
Remember, the hordes of MS-13 that are coming to rape and pillage.
Well, don't forget that.
Oh, and drugs. And don't forget all the drugs.
I would never.
We're all going to be forced against our will to use all these awful drugs that are coming across the border by an MS-13 gang member while he is, of course.
I don't even buy cars that are made in Mexico. Why would I buy my drugs from Mexico?
How do you know?
I know.
mean,
Going way back to the immediate aftermath of the election, when Trump was talking about the Muslim ban, it wasn't an indeterminate ban. It was, we're going to stop people from coming into this country for 90 days while we figure out what the hell is going on. Okay, well, it's been a year and a half. How long is that 90 days supposed to be? And I mean, I'm trying really hard not to criticize the guy on like personality grounds, because I think that at some point, something about his personality resonates with people, with his base. But you have to talk about the policies that his policies don't make any sense. And it is stuff like the Muslim ban. You can't say we're going to shut down Muslims from coming into the country for 90 days, and then you
say it's not a religious ban. I mean,
you're right. But then you say you're going to produce this report about what's going on. Why do we need to stop Muslims from coming into the country? And then you just never do it. And it's the same thing with the healthcare. The kick.
Well, healthcare. I wanted to get back to this because this is one that I was like, oh, absolutely not. This does not fly. We're going to be the party of healthcare. We'll let you know what it is after you reelect us to the Senate, after we take back the House, and after I'm reelected. Then I'll give you my healthcare plan.
Right.
In the meantime, I'm dangling the threat of taking Obamacare away from you.
Everybody's
The courts may do this. So just trust me. He's saying trust me on something like healthcare. I've never seen the Democrats so gleeful in my life. Nancy Pelosi, was her birthday. They were singing happy birthday to her the other day. And of course, they're like, here's the biggest gift you could get is a president waffling on whether or not people are going to keep their health care. That seems like a bad idea.
And the super ironic thing about all this is that if they actually did have a healthcare plan that improved the ACA and gave access to more people, Democrats in Congress would pass it. Mm-hmm. If it was an actual plan that really did a lot of the things that they're talking about, congressional Democrats would pass it, because ultimately I think that we've shown as a party we're willing to take those votes that are maybe not politically winners, but that actually make things better for
anybody
people.
who's actually running for president, I would vote present on that one.
Yeah. Well,
they'll show that kind of courage on a vote like that. But
look at the crime reform bill. They both came together on that.
Sure.
I mean, so if they could put something out there that would make things better,
but
and the ACA can
there
be
is no
approved.
plan. And the fact is, Mitch McConnell hung the president out to dry the other day when he said the Senate's not touching this with a 10-foot pole. You work something out with Nancy Pelosi, then we'll talk. What's the likelihood there? I mean, absolutely zero. So Donald Trump, somebody needs to pull this guy aside and say, hey, stop talking about health care. We don't have a plan yet. We'll let you know if we got one.
All right.
In the meantime, shut the hell up about this.
Yeah, but it's got Obama's name on it.
I mean,
it has to go away.
Look, the Republican plan on
but
healthcare.
originally wasn't that supposed to be a slam against it?
Yeah, right.
Yeah. Their plan on healthcare is to wait until Democrats get control again, and then we'll fix all the problems, and then they'll run around screaming about how it's a government socialist takeover and use that as a leverage issue to try and win elections. That's their plan.
But at the same time, if you're sitting there saying it's not going to work for them next election. If he says that nothing's coming up till after the election, that seems to me that's the rope that he hangs himself with.
Yes.
I don't have a plan for health care, but I don't like what you have.
Right.
That's
And
not
been
going
his
to
story
work
the whole time.
Well, that's been the Republicans' problem the whole time.
Yeah.
They've had 10 years to come up with a solution, and they have not been able to come up with anything other than selling insurance across state lines, which doesn't really address the roots of the problem.
Not even a little bit.
If you don't have protections for pre-existing conditions, nobody in Texas is going to sell you a policy in Michigan if you got
Right.
a pre-existing condition,
And most everybody does.
unless you want to pay $18 gazillion.
Right.
Yeah.
And then they might think about it. All right, well, hold on. Okay, irresponsibility. We were talking on Friday's program about a story that we ran on Deadline Detroit about vaccines and the need for vaccines because we've got a bit of a measles outbreak here in Michigan. And a lot of that stuff gets started by social media, rumors, speculation, do vaccines cause autism, all these discussions. And sometimes it is just an innocent remark by somebody that will get somebody down that path. Donald Trump, in a speech the other day, casually tosses out the notion that windmills and the noise from windmills might cause cancer. And then he's like, I understand that you want to sit there and prop up the fossil fuel industry, but man, that is irresponsible for the president of the United States to toss out something that is complete conspiracy nut job bullshit. Yeah. How does he you cannot allow this to happen.
I feel like it might not be the noise, but when the turbine spins and it blows all of the coal and all of all the fossil fuels that are burned into your face, that could give you cancer.
Yeah, well, that's true. As Joe Jackson famously sang, everything gives you cancer.
Right.
There's no cure, there's no answer. But this is the president of the United States. You cannot go all Jenny McCarthy on me here.
Sure he can. I mean, it's his brand.
Yeah.
He had that, what was that, like an hour and 45-minute speech at CPAC?
If I give cancer, it's the best cancer.
Right.
I mean, it was like,
Good.
The guy literally believes that every human body has a finite amount of energy, and exercise makes you live less.
It takes it away.
Did you didn't hear that?
I've not seen this one.
Yes.
Donald Trump said.
This was like a very old, debunked theory of the human body that when you're born, your body has a finite store of energy. And if you use it doing things like running on a treadmill or exercising or working out.
Playing golf?
No, golf is okay. But but if you use it irresponsibly, then it shortens your lifespan. And despite all medical evidence to the contrary, this is honestly what he believes, that you're born with a fixed amount of energy in your body, and if you use it to do things that are not essential, you'll die quicker.
He also he spoke about eugenics in the past, right?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. Well, I mean, I guess Jim Fixx would be the example, right? I don't know if you guys remember Jim Fixx, running guru, the guy who basically ushered in the jogging era, who died, of course, at age 45 of a massive heart attack while jogging.
Yeah.
Maybe that's what Trump is going by, rather than the fact that there's probably some family arterial disease or something that, anyway. All right. We can't leave the Democrats out of this because they're all a Twitter and a kerfuffle about what to do about Joe Biden. Joe Biden, of course, likes to kiss the back of people's heads and hug them and kiss people in ways that make them uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And I take everybody that says this kind of creeped me out, I take them very seriously. He has said he's going to listen and he's going to change his ways. He realizes that times have changed. But I've always been one of those sort of hug-averse people. Anyway, personal space kind of matters to me. Is this he's got a little trouble here. I don't know how easily he weasels his way out of this one. And weasel, I say, he's a politician. So think about it. Does he escape this, or is this something that's sort of a deal killer for him the way it has been for other people?
Let's see how long it goes. If this is the end of it, there's 7 people now that have said, and it's important to also point out that there's a difference. Nobody is claiming that they've been sexually harassed or abused, that it made them feel uncomfortable, which is understandable.
But isn't being creepy old guy even worse than being like Harvey? I mean, Harvey Weinstein's going to jail,
No,
but I mean,
definitely not worse.
But having
Not
the
worse.
reputation, but having a reputation as creepy old guy, that's the kind of thing that might hurt you.
Yes, in the age of today, that might. And he is, how old is he now? 72, 73?
Yeah.
Somewhere around there. I mean, he is from a different era, and the kids might not vote for him over that.
And I've been thinking about this a lot lately because I think that for us, in a certain sense, there's an urge amongst Democrats to find like the anti-Trump, somebody that has that ability to sort of like have that swagger and that charisma, and that like that's going to be the thing that lets us win the next election.
And that turns into Michael Avenatti.
Exactly right. And that was a hot thing for a few minutes. People were like, "Oh, we want Michael Avenatti to run for president." It's like, why? Like,
yeah. Look at him now.
It's like Jeff Feiger. Jeff Feiger is the same person as Donald Trump, just he happens to be on the other side.
And I think that it's a bad impulse.
And he was a famously awful candidate on the Democratic side.
Yes.
The thing is, people didn't vote for Jeff Feiger.
The only person I have not voted for. I went and voted for all the other ones, but I did not vote on that race. And I am a person, when I was 17 years old at Boise State, stood up in front of a crowd of young men and told he wasn't the governor then, but the state senator, that he had no class, Mr. Engler.
Well,
so I hated that guy, but I couldn't vote for either.
John Engler was a hell of a politician.
Yeah.
I covered him in Lansing
Yeah.
for a while and watched him do what frankly was amazing work. I didn't necessarily agree with him, but when you watch him and you look at what he was doing and what he was able to accomplish and how he got people together, he was a master politician and he knew which buttons to push. And we haven't seen that in a long time from a political leader.
because
great
we have term
president.
limits, so nobody ever gets to develop that ability.
Well, that's the
Great,
Michigan issue. We
Great university president too. No, not at all. Not at all.
Yeah, well, at least he didn't show up at the Final Four that I'm aware of. So that's
And
kind of a
please
big
don't.
deal.
You're not invited.
The courtside seats were not a good look for John Engler.
Tickets to the cookout have been revoked.
Yes.
I should remind folks, my guests right now, Dave Frisetto and Vaughn Derderian. It is the Monday Follies on the Craig Fahle Show on Deadline Detroit. Thanks very much for being here. Let's move on to some other stories here. I thought this was interesting. Big news coverage. Front page of the Free Press, at least in terms of their webpage. And let's be honest, how many people are seeing anything other than the Free Press webpage as opposed to the actual front page these days? Not that many. No offense, Free Press, but people aren't buying the paper the way that they used to, especially when you give it away for free online.
I mean, next person who figures out a journalism model that works will be a millionaire.
I pay for the Washington Post. It seems to work. People do it. Lot more and more stuff is disappearing behind a paywall. So I'm saying it might be worth, people might pony up a little bit if you actually try it. Just a thought. Just a thought. They need to actually try it at some point. All right. So this was a big story on the Freeps page the other day, is that Chick-fil-A is going to open a restaurant in Macomb County. Shelby Township is going to be the home of the first standalone Chick-fil-A. And I'm thinking to myself, I've had Chick-fil-A. It's a good fast food chicken sandwich. But it's just that. It's freaking fast food chicken sandwich. This should not be news.
Front page.
That there is if Burger King was going to open a new location, does that make the paper? Why does Chick-fil-A rate the coverage it rates? What do you think? What is it? Is there something magic in the Christian chicken that works so well?
Is it because
It's Jesus chicken, maybe. I don't know.
maybe because it excites people that are Christian and believe in the same things that they do, and it automatically annoys some people that aren't.
Like I said, I have no standing either way. It's like I said, it's a good chicken sandwich for a fast food joint, and I will go to a Chick-fil-A if it's open here. I don't care one way or the other about their reasons for being closed on Sunday.
I'll go a different direction. I think that one of the things that is interesting and different about Chick-fil-A, and it's not just Chick-fil-A, but it also things like In-N-Out Burger. That doesn't have the same level of like national prominence, but we live in a culture now where increasing everything, we expect every chain and everything to be available everywhere. So you have these macro chains like Applebee's and whatever. And, I always kind of relate it to the craft beer thing, where there are some beers that you just can't get in Michigan. And so, when stuff like that happens and you can get some, it's super exciting. And I think that that's really what I'll lean towards for the Chick-fil-A thing, is that it's hard to get Chick-fil-A. Even if you like it, where down south you can get it everywhere, but if you like it and you live in Michigan, there's only 2 places. There's the one at Open University.
They had a pop-up last week down here. I mean, there was a pop-up Chick-fil-A downtown, and people were lined up around the block. And they did the same thing for Shake Shack when it opened. But I always still get a little bit freaked out. And I mean, as somebody who's going to open a restaurant, I mean,
I want some of that
does this
pub,
concern
man.
you in any way? That,
How do
you
I
know,
get on the
I've
front
got good
cover?
food for a Chick-fil-A taste crowd here. I mean, but the fact that the newspapers covered this, I thought was, I don't understand.
Yeah, I don't either.
I mean, it's not. It's I don't know. It's food, and I get that people like food and they like talking about food and they like to eat it. But it's Chick-fil-A. It's fast food, and I suppose I want to look back 50 years ago when the first McDonald's opened up in Michigan, probably more than that now, and see whether or not there was any news coverage of the fact that this newfangled idea had come to Michigan. You think there's anything out there? They have these strange things called French fries.
Yeah, I wonder when that would have been. I hope it wasn't during the Second World War. They might not.
Post. No, I think McDonald's is a little later than that.
Are
I think
they?
it was 50s, if I'm not
Yeah,
mistaken.
like
but,
50s, 60s.
But you guys both have owned places like that, and but Chick-fil-A, I've never understood sort of the. I mean, it is good, but it's just.
But at the same time, we're talking about it, so it's obviously newsworthy in a certain sense because we're talking about it. People are going to listen to this and relate to the idea that it was covered.
But we're talking about the response to Chick-fil-A. I mean, maybe it's something I don't understand because I did get used to it. I lived down south for a little while, and I had one across the parking lot from my office, and so I went there quite often, as a matter of fact. But when they opened a new one, nobody really did anything except like, oh, there's another Chick-fil-A. Just line up in the drive-thru like they do every other one.
Well, and the other thing that's a little bit crazy and weird is like, why don't we have more Chick-fil-A's in Michigan? Like, why is it that there's only 3? I mean, 2 or 3 now.
We have a lot of people that like fast food.
Yes,
Yeah.
well, we are one of those states
We are.
where our weight is pushing some.
We're
some
holding
limits.
it down, should we say?
All right, we've got a few minutes left, gentlemen, and it would not be the Fahles if we did not go to Florida. We have to go to Florida. Florida man, before the craze started, and I'm not going to take credit for this because I didn't discover anything that other people hadn't already figured out. Weird stuff happens in Florida, but we have been covering Florida man stories on the Fahles for several years now, and I love this one. Let's start with this. There's a Kickstarter out there right now for a Florida man card game. Which is great. It's sort of like a Mad Libs kind of thing where you match up cards with weird stuff that has happened in Florida with imaginary sentences. Would you buy a Florida Man card game?
Yep.
Could this be the new what's that card
Cards
game?
Against
Cards Against Humanity.
Yeah.
Exactly. Could it be?
Sure.
Going home to invest in it right now.
There's a Kickstarter for the Florida Man card
This
game.
needs to happen.
It looked like it was going to be kind of cool. I like the way that they had set it up.
I haven't, I didn't look at it, but yeah, no, I would totally buy it. Like, I'm not a big fan of Cards Against Humanity, but
You're
Florida
not a
Man
game
sounds
night
cool.
guy?
No, I am. I just don't like Cards Against Humanity.
Well, it does sort of. It is a little depressing after a while that you can be that depraved, because some of the combinations that come up with this. I mean, my son and his friends. He's a college kid. They play this all the time.
Oh, God, yeah.
And it's like, really?
Yeah,
Really? Wow.
there's a whole thing about it. It's basically like it's comfortable middle class humor punching down a lot of times, and that's not to be too stereotypical.
Florida
Democrat,
Man is
but-
definitely going to do that.
Yeah.
Well, but it's different because Florida Man is not like Florida Man is like universal. It's this crazy thing that just happens in Florida for some unknown reason. Florida Man is all of us.
Well, actually, Florida Man is all of us because all this stuff happens in other states. The only difference is Florida is incredibly open about what information goes
share.
public. As soon as you get arrested in Florida, what you did, what you're accused of doing is out on the internet. So the newspapers just sit there and go, oh, here's the arrest reports with all the details in there, full arrest reports. And so you find out that a guy threw a burrito at his wife and got charged with assault.
I mean, look, Florida Man is black and white, gay and straight, Muslim, Christian.
We are Florida Man.
really is the American dream.
Well, here's this latest Florida Man story. We have this guy in Florida who stole a Jeep from a woman's house. Apparently, didn't remember exactly where he stole it, but he did realize that he dropped his phone somewhere. So here's the great part. He's sitting there and he's like, find my phone. You have this feature. And it's like, it's pinging at this address. He goes, oh, I'm going to drive to this house and find my phone. So he gets there and he asks this woman who's there, hey, did you guys find my phone? It's the house where he stole the car from. And he pulls up at the same time to ask about the phone in the car while the police are interviewing the woman, taking the report from her about who stole her car.
Apparently, he had been in a number of houses, and he wasn't sure that was the one.
Exactly. So I'll just take my chances here, and maybe I'll get lucky here and find my phone. Yeah. Well, sure enough, he was arrested because
did he find his
that's
phone?
my car. Yes, his phone was there, which linked him to the fact that the car was stolen. He tried to say that, I borrowed this from a buddy of mine.
Yeah.
But no, it didn't work out when they found his phone on the premises. So
good times.
That's the latest Florida man story.
Did he at least get his phone back, like while he was being processed? I mean,
I
separation.
have a feeling that he didn't get a chance to see it until he got out.
Yeah.
They hold your stuff in a little locker until it's time for you to go. As the scene in the Blues Brothers, the opening scene of the Blues Brothers so famously lets people know. They keep your stuff and you get it all back exactly the way you left it.
Yeah.
So he got his phone back apparently, but this is great. You're just thinking to yourself, what was his state when he stole the car, first of all? That he would think that this was a good idea. Yeah. I better retrace my footsteps from last night.
That's always the difficult question, right? Is what was he thinking? That's
right. Let me go back to all the houses I broke into last night and see if I left my phone at any of them.
Where did I get this car?
Yeah. I mean, he was smart enough to use the Find My iPhone thing, though, you know?
That's pretty helpful.
He didn't have to visit all the houses he broke into.
Thanks, Tim Apple.
Yeah.
Now, did you see this, though? And I was thinking to myself, all right, so I have the explanation that, we are all Florida man. But maybe I'm wrong about that. Because the other story that came out of Florida was this giant blue-green meteor that was shooting through the sky in Florida. There's some great video of this. I don't know if you saw it, but it was very bright. And not like typically meteors are sort of, bright white or something like that as they're flashing through the sky. This one was sort of, bluish green. Aliens? Perhaps we have aliens amongst us in Florida, and they're the ones that are committing all these goofy crimes down there.
Why not?
Am I off?
I mean, it's as good an explanation as any I've ever heard.
Would it explain our current political climate if indeed aliens had been controlling us for the last several years in our thought process?
Well,
I don't know. I would hope that it would be some weird experiment and not just...
The results always come out 50.5 to 49.5, right? So it's predictable.
Well,
one looks like it might be being controlled.
So in the coming week, we're going to have a bunch of new stuff that we're going to be talking about that are going to make the Fahles this week for next week. And I have no idea what's going to come up. But one of these things I'm thinking about doing, and I just want to run this by you guys before I actually try to do it. If I should end this with crazy predictions for the president for the week, what may go down in the coming week?
I'll say this. There is nothing so crazy that you could predict for the coming week that would be crazier than things that are actually going to happen. That's the world that we live in now. Like, there's really nothing. I mean, we had a president who just gave a press conference where he talked about the oranges of his family.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
The oranges?
The oranges.
As opposed to the origins.
The oranges of the problem at the border.
Well, that okay, the orange makes fun. Anyway,
I like oranges with my hamburgers.
Hamburgers.
All right, we'll leave it there, guys. Appreciate it. Thank you very much. Dave Frisetto, thank you. And fingers crossed. Good luck.
Yeah.
Good luck on the Lexington. Hopefully we'll get some news pretty soon. Von der Darien, best of luck as well. You've got a lot of work to do up there in Oakland County. And see if you guys can build on some of those big wins that you had last time around. But the pressure's going to be on.
It's all right.
Yeah, well, you roped yourself into this. It's going to be interesting.
Hey, it's fun.
All right. Well, I appreciate it. I'll let you do it. I spent enough time in the political world. I just get to watch it from now on. It's a lot more fun on this side of things, believe me. All right, Von der Darien, Dave Frisetto, thank you very much. Thanks to Michael Lucido for engineering the broadcast today. I hope you all enjoyed it. Thanks for this. It's the MondayFahle. It's the MondayFahle. We'll see you next time.
Happy Monday.